Welcome to Inside Paraplanning, the podcast from the PFS Paraplanners, where we open the door to the world of paraplanning and share what really goes on behind the scenes. Whether you're brand new to the profession or just curious about what makes paraplanners tick, you're in the right place. Each episode, we bring together voices from the PFS Paraplanners panel and beyond to share practical advice, real stories, and tips to help you navigate this ever-evolving role. I'm Hannah Wynick from the PFS Paraplanning Panel, and today I'm joined by Alan Gow and Sophie Brown.
Hello.
For a conversation that is perfect for anyone starting out, how to get started in paraplanning. We'll talk about the skills you need, the challenges you might face, and the opportunities that make this career so rewarding. So let's get started. Sophie, welcome.
Hello.
So first question, obvious question. How did paraplanning come about? How did you get started?
I feel a bit like everybody. I always say I fell into the role. Not quite sure that's true. I did a placement year while I was at university. So placement sandwich year between like second and third year. And I worked in a wealth management firm. And still at the time, no one really used the term paraplanning at all. But I guess that's what my role was. And then from there, I obviously completed my final year and got a role as a trainee paraplanner. And I was more put in touch with the people that I then went on to be employed by. But that was the first time I'd heard of the role paraplanner. And it just got described to me as, you're the technical research, you're helping out the advisors, you get involved with the advice. And I was like, oh, that sounds really good. And obviously that's what I had been doing. And yeah, it just kind of went from there, really. And then I think since I started, so that was 7 years ago, I do think the paraplanning world has evolved. I think more people know what a paraplanner is now. So yeah, that's it.
And then, so obviously going into this role and not massively knowing what you were maybe getting yourself into.
Yes.
What challenges did you face then compared to, say, that you might face now that you know what it is that you do day to day?
So first one is definitely massive learning curve in terms of knowledge. I started out, so I'd done my placement, so I had an insight into the kind of financial planning world, but I was very new to the exams and the different advisors and the processes and all of that kind of thing and all of the technical stuff. But so much so, before I even did my placement, I was like, what's an ISA? Like, genuinely no idea. And I laugh about it now. I'm just like, how was that me?
But why would you know?
Yeah, I know. But I look back and some people now are still like, what's an ISA? And I'm like, you must know. Come on, everyone knows what a pension is. Like, you got to have that. So yeah, I think massive learning curve in terms of the technical side, but also just like the soft skills, like the communication, even just the email threads and that kind of thing. It's just not something you really do before.
And I suppose if it's your first job,
yeah,
it's getting used to that working world anyway, and then having all the technical side on top of it and knowing what you're talking about and how to then do the actual paraplanning role.
Definitely, yeah.
How long was that placement? Okay. And were there certain things that when you started doing the role, but you kind of picked up on that you thought, actually, this clicks with how my brain works, or there's certain things that said, what was it that made you think this could be my vocation?
So my placement was at a smaller company that I'm at now, and that was a real benefit for me in terms of, I wouldn't say I was the most confident person on that placement year. So I think having more like one-on-one training was really great. So I was able to ask the questions. I was able to say, I don't quite understand. Can you tell me what that means? But yeah, so I got involved in pretty much everything. I got involved in the research side. I got involved in the annual reviews. I was able to kind of get involved in the client meetings and all of that. So I was seeing it all come together. I didn't know that that's what paraplanning was as such at that point. But it was just exciting to be able to do it all and go, oh, this makes sense. Like what I'm doing kind of it makes sense. And my university course was very accounting heavy.
What was your
accounting and law?
Oh, right, okay.
That's what I get every time I say it. People go, really?
It does sound heavy.
It's financial services is actually like a perfect mix of the two, though. Because you have the numbers, but you also have the writing side, which is great. But yeah, it was a very accounting heavy course, and the more I was getting into it, the more I was like, I don't want to be an accountant, but what do I do? So the placement made me kind of go, there is another route here that is actually way more exciting. And I was going to all of these seminars and the technical sessions, and I was like, there's so much to learn. And every day I was coming home with like, oh, I'm learning something else. The director of the company I was at used to call it my clicky moments, because I'd go in and I'd go, I get it. Like, I get what you're talking about. And he'd be like, clicky moment.
It's so true, though, because you don't think that, like, there's so many jobs. I've done several jobs before I was in this industry where it's the same thing every day, and you don't realise how little you are using your brain. It just becomes second nature. But actually, that was something that I love about paraplanning, and that really pulled me in, was every day was different. I was learning constantly. Even now, you constantly, doing different things and having to use your brain. And I think just people who are in this industry, that is something that pulls everybody in, collectively.
Yeah, it's a similar thing for me. And, I found out what I didn't want to do in the same way as Sophie, because I was doing my degree and I was like, this isn't right. This isn't me. Things have moved on since I started off down this path. So I feel quite lucky to have found paraplanning, because I did stumble across it. It wasn't by design. I think when you find something that just clicks with how your brain works and you get that sort of satisfaction out of it day to day, some people never find that. It's great to have that in your daily job.
We are very lucky. It sounds so cliche, doesn't it? But we are, and there's something nice about going, you know what? Yeah, I fell into it and it's not where I thought I would be. It's definitely not what I thought I'd be doing, but I love my job. I love the industry we work in. I love the people that we work with. And I think, I don't feel that financial planners and advisors necessarily have that cohesion with other financial planners and advisors, whereas paraplanners do have that. We do support each other and help each other, and we're not competitive. We're all there to, like the panel, for example, we're there to help promote it in the wider world. And
I always say to people that paraplanning is your perfect role in terms of you're involved in the real life. So you can see how what you're doing impacts somebody, but you don't necessarily have to be that front-facing person. You don't have to, if you don't have the confidence to kind of be the advisor and be in front of the client, you can do it all from, it sounds bad to say the sidelines, because I don't believe that's where we are, but you have that ability to still impact on somebody and you can see how that works. And that to me is what is probably the most rewarding thing about it, is, the hours I put into that financial plan and all that research, I can see how that's going to impact your life.
Yeah, you're behind the scenes, aren't you? But no, you was talking before about the soft skills and learning how that all worked as well. Do you think technical versus soft skills are equal? Do you think that there's something that you had to learn more? Was the soft skills easier to learn? Technical, how did you come up in that?
I think technical and soft skills are 50-50 in terms of being a paraplanner. Yeah. I think communication is so important. And when you actually think about kind of where we sit in terms of the advice process, we are the go-between between administration and advisors, but also between your platforms and your research tools and everything. So you need to learn how to communicate what you're after, what you're asking for, and also how to say it in a way that doesn't annoy people, wind people up. You want to be there to talk to the advisor and to understand the advice, but it doesn't want to come across as I'm questioning the advice. It's just more of a, can you talk me through it? So I think learning how to communicate that, not just face to face, but also via email. People take email tones in different ways. Is there a way we need to be saying things? Or even on the phone, how do you talk to people on the phone? How much of the side chat do you have before you get into the nitty gritty? It sounds silly, but I just think that's such a huge part of what we do. But obviously the technical side is up there. But I think I think the soft skills are quite underrated in terms of their importance sometimes.
Yeah, because my pet peeve with email is when someone doesn't say dear, hi, to, they just put Hannah. And I'm like, don't demand my attention. Like, learn to be polite. And
but then if you say it in a different way, you're like,
hi, Hannah. Then I'd be...
Or if they just went, oh, Hannah.
Yeah.
Like, that's different, but Hannah. Yeah. It's how you read it.
Just note to everybody listening, like, hi, dear, to, goes a long way.
Right. No highs in your email.
Honestly. So if somebody's coming into the industry, not got a clue sort of where they're sitting, what they want to do, is there anything that you would say, because obviously like technical, as much as the soft skills is really important to learn, I suppose like you say, you didn't know what an ISA was or all these very, very, what we would now class as basic things. Is there anything you would say to somebody kind of coming into the industry now there's like the starting point for that learning and that development?
Yes, I think there's so much out there in terms of what you can read. I think obviously you've got the qualifications, you've got the RO exams, you've got all of those, which I do think are important. But I think it's important to be able to phrase that in a way that you understand, because reading the textbook back to back, let's be honest, it's not the most riveting of reads. But there's so much else out there. You know, you've got like Prudential, M&G, Standard Life, they've all got like little pages that you can read up on just these little snippets, and just doing 5 minutes of reading per day on something it just gets you pushed along in terms of your knowledge. I used to do it if I was working on like a new case I worked on. I would do the case, and obviously you've got the time to do the case. But then after that, I'd go and go, okay, but what am I actually doing? Let me read about it. And then that's how I then kind of learned, you know, the different types of drawdown or pension benefits and all of that kind of thing. That's how I then learned that. Plus also just then asking questions.
Yes, I suppose you're not just regurgitating the same, like, you want to invest this amount in your ISA because blah, 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 blah. You're actually understanding what the limits are, how it works, what the benefits are. Like, you're not just following the template and the pattern. You're actually having to use your brain a little bit more.
I think it's quite difficult. And I used to struggle with like, oh, people are going to think I'm really silly if I ask this question. But everybody's been in that situation. And just picking up the phone to, you know, your platform provider and just saying, can you just talk me through it? Just talk me through that process, or talk me through how that is going to work. And actually understanding it from a different viewpoint, not necessarily just the paraplanner viewpoint, really does solidify that knowledge. Like, oh, how does it work when we transfer an asset in specie? Like, from your side, what happens? And then you're then able to put that in the report and go, I understand it. I get it. So then you pick it up again the next time. You're like, I remember talking to somebody about this. I've got that one now.
That sounds like a really good way to move from the kind of textbooky stuff where everything is theoretical and kind of matter of fact to giving it a bit of real world context, I suppose, which just takes time.
Yeah, definitely. I've never been someone to just sit at a textbook and kind of learn. Like, fair play to anybody who does. That's not me. So I do like to, I kind of have the textbook, but also like to do the practical side as well.
I think what Alan's just said is really important. Like, I think a big part of what we do as paraplanners is having and taking time. Like, not sitting and rushing through what we're doing, saying like, right, I've got a case, and if it takes me an extra hour because I'm really concentrating on understanding what the client wants and understanding what is necessary, then, you know, it just makes it easier. And then, like you say, for next time, I think so many people are just worried about getting the work done and passing their exams really quickly and, you know, making sure they can do as much as possible in the shortest amount of time. But actually, sometimes having the time to sit back and go, right, today, I'm just going to focus on a bit of learning. I'm going to really understand what it is that I'm doing so I can really help this advisor, help this client. And I think we sort of forget that sometimes.
But I think over time, you know, at first you sit back and you kind of go, I'm going to need a bit more time to work on this. Over time, that's only going to improve. And that's going to improve because you've taken the time to get to know that. So I also think that timekeeping is a massive skill that is really important in paraplanning. It's not just writing the reports, it's not just doing the research, but it's also mixing the two together. You know, you've got to answer the queries as well. How does that fit into my day? I don't feel like you can be too prescriptive about time blocking or anything like that. You've kind of got to be open to it, but that is a skill in itself to then learn how to be open to that and fit it all in.
there's so much, especially when you're starting, that you want to do really well in your job, but then it is that learning, having that space to learn and really understand, so that you can, like you say, learning about assets and species transfers and how they work, so that next time we had a client who wanted scatter graphs and all the alphas and ratios putting in the report, and I was like, I have to explain that to the client, and is the client going to understand all this jargon, and I then have to make it less jargony for the report, but is it relevant? Oh, you don't need to. He said, you don't need to explain it, you just put the graphs in. And I was like, I do need to explain it, because if I'm looking at that and I had no idea, me 20 years ago going, what? But if I didn't understand that, then so
I think having the right people around you makes a massive difference, doesn't it? Because if you've got someone who's got your back, who's got the time, or is willing to take the time, I suppose, especially when we're all so busy, to explain things to you. If you've got someone at a platform that's actually willing to talk you through that process, that's fantastic. We're all under so much pressure. I think having that right support and people that you can learn from and give context to the stuff that's in the textbook is really going to help you on your journey.
Yeah, definitely.
And so what would you, in hindsight now, say to someone starting out who was a bit overwhelmed by all this technical, information that they've got to take in? How would you suggest that they deal with that and approach that?
Bite-sized chunks is the only way I can kind of say it. And if that means that you spend a week doing just doing ISAs or something like that, obviously it depends on your workload and your firm and all of that kind of thing. But if you have the opportunity to kind of say, I've done an ISA transfer report, can I do another one? So then I can follow through on the knowledge. That to me makes more sense than jumping from one to the other, and then potentially you've got weeks in between doing the different reports, because you only lose that. Whereas obviously the repetitive nature in what you're learning really does help. But yeah, bite-sized chunks, but also ask the questions. It's so much more beneficial to everybody if you ask at the time, get the answer, and then go and try and do something, than muddling through it, knowing you've got it wrong, and then you've got to go back and do it again. It might feel like you're taking up a lot of people's time to begin with, but I don't think you are at all. I think people would prefer that. That is 100% not me saying don't go out and try and find the answer yourself, by the way. I would hate for that to come across like it. But just, I think there's got to be a mix between going and finding it yourself, but also realising when you do need to talk to somebody and talk through it.
Or saying even look, I've gone, if you're looking for different tax rates or something, look, I've gone on, looked for it myself. Is this right? Is what I found correct? Because actually that's showing your initiative, but also clarifying it before you make a mistake and the whole report needs rewriting.
I think for me, one of the things I hadn't appreciated when I started doing exam study is understanding how I learn. And I know there's various assessments you can do to try and kind of pin down what works best for you if you haven't established that yet. But there's so many different ways that people take information on board. I found that most of my early study was reading textbooks and highlighting things and writing out notes longhand. But actually, I quite like watching videos, and I find I'm learning better that way. So you can sort of take a step forward, I think, by identifying the way that works best for you.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I've got textbooks full of highlighted areas, and I think I've never went back and read it. I just highlighted it. Oh, that sounds interesting.
You've got to put it in a way that you understand it. Like the textbooks explain it in a certain way, but let's be honest, do they explain it in a client-friendly way as well? Because this is me generalising, but most clients, I like to see them as like me at the very start of my financial services career. Yeah. Does that person understand this? Probably not. Let's go back and explain it in a different way.
And I always think, would I, however many years ago, understand what that means?
Yeah.
Probably not. Rewrite it. And then as long as Hannah from all those years ago gets it, we're fine.
Yeah.
So are there any... is there any software, there any tools out there that you think are quite useful to learn early on to help? Alan mentioned, these tools that you can help your learning style. But is there anything that you found was really useful at the beginning of your career that maybe has helped you develop as you've gone forward?
I think Alan's right. I think knowing your learning style is really important. But in terms of the the tools and stuff that we use. One of the ones that we use all the time, like FE, they do like a accreditation, and it's something that I don't know if many people know about it, but it's a really good accreditation. And just learning the different research tools in depth, it kind of goes back to the whole work on something and then move forward. But it's something that, you know, I learned it 7 years ago. I'm still using FE every single day. So it's really useful to get to know that. But it's not just FE, you know, there's a load of different accreditations on different areas. There's an investment trust one. There's all of these. I just think if you can learn specific areas really well, then that's where you can then take that knowledge forward.
Yeah. That makes sense. And you mentioned before about asking questions and feeling like, oh, I'm asking a silly question again. Has the way that you sort of, I suppose, deal with your advisors or speak, has that changed as you've gotten more confident? Do you still feel like, if I've got a question to ask, that's a bit nerve-wracking, or, you know, are you more confident in now speaking with them?
I would say, yeah, I'm more confident now. I would like to think I know a bit more what I'm talking about now. But I still think it's how you phrase it. I still think that is really important. And the whole soft skills thing, I think it carries through your career. So no matter what stage you're in, that's really important. But yeah, it's still one of those, like, can I have a word with you about what you've asked for? Like, it still feels a bit funny, but it's more just a conversational piece now. And I feel like I can bring more to it in terms of, have we thought about this? Have you thought about that? And most of the time they go, oh, that's a really good point. Like,
we all have imposter syndrome, don't we? And it's not really talked about, but we all do. And the first time something comes up where you think, oh, I'm not sure. I don't remember what the first time it was for me, but let's say you think an advisor might be recommending a pension contribution that's going to be overfunding. They're going to be exceeding their allowances, and you're looking at it thinking, well, it must be me getting this wrong. What don't I know? And it's not. But to actually take that to the advisor and say, look, I'm not sure about this, it's quite difficult to start that process, isn't it?
I always use this example, and I know my advisor knows I always say it, but we have an advisor who, we did an annual review for the client. They put some money into pension and they were really concentrating on that, so much so that she hadn't considered better nicering, and it was coming up for tax year end. And we had to figure out a way to go and say, look, there could be a perfectly logical reason why we're not doing it. The money was there, but they might have just missed it. And actually it was that she just missed it. It wasn't, she was so focused on getting the pension contribution sorted that it totally, so if we hadn't broached that subject, then the client would have missed out on a full tax, ISA allowance that year. But it was just a way to say it. And I suppose as you get used to working with certain planners and advisors, then it does become easier, but it is wording it in a way that's not, you're wrong, and we think this is, it's saying like, is there a reason that we're doing it this way? And
yeah. I've never had an advisor kind of go, oh, I don't say that. Do you know what I mean? Like, they've never kind of said it as like, oh, don't question my advice, because I've never phrased it in that way. But everybody, including the advisors, they can only kind of focus on so much at once. Like, we only focus on so much at once, so the advisors are the same. So you're right, they could just miss it.
It's a fresh pair of eyes, the same way that we would have people maybe look over our work or come back to it the next day. They probably, like you say, they've got so much going on that they need to think about. Yeah. We're their second set of eyes. So if we are seeing something we can't quite figure out how they've got to that result, like, it's not, I don't think it's ever a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is totally part of being a paraplanner. It's our job to do that, but you can't do it from day one. And that confidence builds up over time. You just kind of ride with that and just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the thing I kind of say to the team now is, how do you expect to write a financial plan? And, they're reason whys. It's not just like, this is what I'm doing. It's, why are we doing it? Why have we ruled out however many things? Because you need to know that to write a good suitability report. But how are you going to do that if you don't ask the question?
Absolutely. And is there any on-the-job learning that you did personally, or was it just a case of sort of not thrown in at the deep end, but do your diploma, just write the reports and see how you get on? Or was there anything specific that you did that you think could help other people?
So I had a very supportive team behind me. So the way we are kind of set up is that we work with specific advisors. Like new business is more pooled in the middle, but in terms of reviews and stuff, it's specific advisors. So I think getting to know that advisor's style and what they do. But by way of doing that, when I was like first starting as a trainee, I got involved in the client meetings. I think going to see the process and working it through from the very beginning really helped me kind of understand what we're doing. And just seeing everything. So I saw the first meeting, I then did the sense check, I then packaged everything up, and then I wrote the report, and then getting that almost like the personal touch involved kind of helped me understand how a report should then be framed. Because that's another thing, like writing a suitability report, that's a skill in itself. Phrasing it in the right way, getting the flow right, that is a skill. And it takes a while to kind of put it all together, especially when you've got IHT planning, estate planning, pensions, like all in one. How do you lay that out? And the first one I did, oh my gosh, took me so long.
I would love to see the first suitability report I ever wrote and
how
dreadful it probably was.
I remember sending it to the advisor and I missed out a chunk because this goes back to the whole imposter syndrome. I just missed out the chunk because I was like, I don't know what to write. So I just missed it out. And he sent it back and he went, you need to fill that pot in. And I was like, oh no.
What do I do now?
Yeah, and that was the point where I had to be like, okay, help me.
You need to put your big girl pants on. So we've talked a lot about sort of in the office type work.
Yeah.
Networking for new paraplanners or people coming into the industry. Has it helped you? How do you think it could help new starters? Has it been something that you've kind of embraced?
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, where I did my placement, I got to know them well. So a number of the events that we go to in terms of, conferences or webinars, seminars, whatever, it's nice to know that potentially you're going to know somebody there. But the first bit of networking I guess I ever did was on my placement year. And I would turn up to these events and be like, I don't know what to do. And I just kind of stand in the corner and be like, hi. It is overwhelming, but I think you do get a lot out of it. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. People don't like going to these things. But I think if you can just pick one thing, you just pick up one thing out of that event, then it's made it worthwhile. Like you go to these like all-day conferences and there's a lot of information to take on. But like if you can just pick up one thing, great, it's worth it.
Absolutely. And I think the whole thing about knowing somebody in the room, like it is terrifying. Yeah. I actually think we have a paraplanning lab on networking somewhere in the archives.
I think so.
So that's probably quite a good one for people to watch if they're not sure. But it is scary. It's scary going. I still now, if I go to something and I know I won't know anybody, I have to find find somebody to hang out with for the day. Like I'm like a child, but it makes you feel a bit better to have someone to talk.
I think as humans, we're programmed to kind of go, everyone else knows each other and I'm going to be the one on my own. I can guarantee there's going to be at least a handful of people that are by themselves in that room.
I'm glad you both said that because I've felt like that at every event I've been to for about 20 years.
We're there. Yeah. Just hold your hand next time, Al. It'll be fine.
There's also so many events that as a paraplanner starting out in the industry, there's so many events to do. You've got I think they used to be called under 35 events. I'm not sure whether they can be that prescriptive anymore, but they're called something like that. But yeah, you can get to know different paraplanners, and they're usually like the trainees, the ones starting out, which is slightly less daunting than going into the room and meeting kind of people that have been in the industry for a really, really long time.
And I think there are more paraplanner events now than there were. So when I started out, it was the only networking that I did, apart from the fact that I went with my mum and my dad because they were both in the industry as well. So I looked like a kid being dragged along for the day. But apart from that, they were for advisors. They weren't for us. So I'd go and listen to people talk about things that I wasn't really interested in.
Yeah.
But now there are so many paraplanner specific events. And actually, I feel like we're maybe, I don't want to say we're like a friendlier bunch, but we're there as part of the networking as well to kind of help other paraplanners. And I think that helps.
Yeah, I've got chatting to people at events and found out that they're actually not paraplanners, they're advisors. And they come along to the paraplanner events because of that sort of community, and because the presentations tend to be less salesy, and I actually feel that they get more out of it. And I find that really interesting because, you know, nobody wants to go to a presentation and be shown another graph on gilt yields. You know, we need something a bit more development stuff and behavioural stuff, and things that are actually interesting.
Yeah, because it is a bit repetitive, you know. So to sit in a room of people that you know are, even if you are starting out, that this is what I could get to, and seeing people, you know, if you say this, see the same people. I know when we do the Purely Paraplanning conference and we all, you know, had the panel on stage and people are asking questions, if you can see your peers and hear from them, you're more likely to kind of engage with what's happening at the rest of the conference.
I find that much more comfortable than being in a room full of advisors. And I think for me, if I go to a local advisor event and there's, you know, 50 people in the room and I feel like I'm the only paraplanner, it is a bit different. I do find it difficult to sort of, some people can just go up to somebody and start talking. And if somebody does that to me, if somebody comes up to me and just starts talking, that's okay. But the other way around, I find it very, very difficult. And I will stand in the corner quite happily and mind my own business.
Or I go to the stands and talk to the providers about the merch that they're giving out. Like at one of the local PFSs, I had a lovely chat with the Aviva lady about the lip balm they were giving out, because that was something I felt more comfortable about than approaching another person to talk about the generic, what I do for a living kind of, and then for them to go, oh, we don't use paraplanners. So I think, well, that was a waste. So I had a great chat about the lip balm. I'm just conscious of time, but one sort of final question. If you could give yourself a bit of advice, your younger self that's just coming into the industry, what would it be?
Take a breath. I think, genuinely, it probably would be take a breath. I think I headed into the industry thinking, I need to get my diploma and I need to be at this level. And I obviously did it, like that's fine. But yeah, I think when you start asking the questions and really delving deep into what people do, that's when the most interesting parts of your day happen. And I think people now have this kind of, I've got to get my diploma done in 12 months or whatever. And yeah, great. Like it is a really great achievement, but there's so much more to learn. So yeah, I would say take a breath and just take it all in, because there's so much out there.
That's really good advice. I always think your exams are a bit like your driving test. Like you learn to take your test and pass your test, but you need to drive to learn how, like on your own, to actually understand.
That was.
That's a good one.
Yeah. They're never going to beat that.
I'm thinking about that one for days, isn't it?
You can all use that. I'll let you have that. So that's it for today's episode of Inside Paraplanning. We hope this conversation has given you some useful insights and encouragement if you're thinking about starting your journey into our industry. It's a role full of opportunities to learn, grow, and make a real difference for clients, and getting started is often the hardest step. So a huge thank you as always to Alan Gow, but definitely to Sophie Brown for joining us and sharing her experience and all her practical tips. And if you're looking for even more guidance, don't forget the brand new PFS Paraplanning Panel Guide to Getting Started in Paraplanning is out now. You can download a copy from the PFS Paraplanning page or via our LinkedIn page. It's packed with advice and resources to help you take those first steps with confidence. If today's episode has sparked ideas or questions, come and join the conversation in our LinkedIn group. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with your team and hit subscribe so you're ready for the next one. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Inside Paraplanning.